Nobilitas, heathenry, paganism, a higher form of civilizational force, theologically, ethically, philosophically, morally, superstructure of ideas. I argue that Greco-Roman forms of religiosity, the philosophy and theology, completely at odds with everything that Judeo-Christianity illogically, irrationally conjured throughout the last centuries, is superior. I argue that the Greco-Roman forms of theology, philosophy, ethos, virtue, arete, paideia, was and is always superior to the Judeo-Christian invention. That what the Greco-Roman, Egypto-Hellenic, superior forms of theology, panentheism, polytheistic philosophy, built as hypotheses, built as arguments, as the pillars of the temple of Parthas Athena, the Parthenon, was always superior to everything Judeo-Christian. Now, what is my main argument? As a person who is not an ignorant in Judeo-Christian matters, as a heathen since the age of 12 and noble person, I managed to research Judeo-Christianity, the esoterical forms, the theological forms, philosophical forms, aesthetical forms. Because I need to know my enemy. I need to know the symbols, the philosophy, the morality of my enemy. My first axiom is Iamblichian, Iamblich of Chalcis, Middle Neoplatonist theurgy. Gods and goddesses exist in pluralities. If the gods exist, certain people may experience them. Not in peak experiences, not in delusions, not in psychiatrist forms, not in willingly blind faith, but ascertaining reason and intellectual progress and aretic homoiosisteo, the hidden original one, by a set of rituals and ceremonies, meditative clauses, contemplation, philosophy, performative action towards the divine divinities. The gods to some of us, and goddesses in pluralities, and the midwives, the Angelibonum, Republican, Imperial, from this circle high above. In autophaneia, they manifest. Some of us may see the gods, therefore experience them empirically. Some of us may be possessed or inspired by the divine spirit, and therefore we engage in interpretation, hermeneutics like Hermes, Tris, Megistos. Thrice great, descending to the waters of Tantalus, living life, ascend posthumously as a demigod to join the procession of gods. Now, if you have the foundation of the classical philosophy, ethos, virtue, arete, and alke even, theology of the ancient theologoi, theologia, word about gods, a word about gods, and you experience gods and goddesses directly as great powers that in autophaneia show you a mask of themselves in great inspiration, then you compare and weight, like on a justice scale. And if you have the hidden noble theology, philosophy here, and then you have the Judeo-Christian philosophy, theology, and whatever they invented through centuries, and the noble heathen, pagan things are here. And the Judeo-Christian things, whatever they use for justification of the illogical irrationality and belief of some crucified Jew or some lesser Jewish god, goes down there. So, as a heathen or nobilitas purist, I acknowledge Judeo-Christianity as a lie. I acknowledge Judeo-Christianity as a religious process form of historical inferiority. I may be in minority, but everything I've won so far, my gladius with the divinities, was anti-Judeo-Christian, pro-ancient. it was pro-heathen, noble, anti-Judeo-Christian symbols, anti-Jewish God, anti-crucified Galilean zero. So whenever I engage in my Puritan, heathen, noble activities, I may acknowledge those Judeo-Christian lies and forms. However, it is a sad fact that many millions bought these Judeo-Christian lies within a civilizational form that overtook the armed force of Rome and the Greek individuation and genius and innovation and polluted it with Judeo-Christianity, which as such, as a religious form, would be inept at creating anything. In the Renaissance, in the classical times, the vector was backwards to the antique, to the classical times. Judeo-Christianity was never capable of reforming itself and bringing something good. It developed into a cherry-picking system of lies. It was always a formoid of lies. Now, at the very end, I would like to utter a certain idea that those within Judeo-Christian framework rarely ever acknowledge or study the hidden noble textualities, whether they be Greek, Roman, mystery schools of Mediterranean, whether Scandinavian, whatever is remaining in textuality, whether the Hindi or Buddhist. And as such, I think that as a pagan person in contact with my gods that are liberating me, Hecate, Soteria, Hail, Hieros, Isis, Osiris, Hieros, Hosios. So the whole idea of salvification from Jewish sins in Christianity as some kind of a word pollution. In the hidden sense, you live as such, a noble person. You affirm your life through pain and suffering and woe and happiness, and you overcome it and you rectify it into perfection, into a diamond, something worthy truly of going upwards in ascent. So, as I mentioned, Judeo-Christians have no idea usually about comparative religion, comparative mysteries, or practice within those mysteries. They are complete ignorant. Not some of them, most of them. Now, heathens or noble people should know the basic tenets and Judeo-Christian theology, the symbols and myths that go throughout the ages. Why? Because then they know that they may offer a proper, professional pagan theology, philosophy, and ethos that is superior to those formoids. And then they can formulate the arguments in a way that doesn't fight in the Judeo-Christian bog, because if you fight with pigs, the pigs drag you into mud. And then you have a mud fight with Judeo-Christian pigs in the mud. And unfortunately, there is millions of them, so you won't win. What heathens, nobles may do is offer a superior way, ignoring Judeo-Christianity, like Macrobius in Saturnalia. That is the only proper way of defeating an enemy, offering something superior that people will recognize as superior, so that they cast the Judeo-Christian lies away as nonsensical, irrational, illogical crap. Now, I think I extrapolated the whole situation here. There is no way to prove it otherwise than with your intellect, because you cannot demonstrate the gods or goddesses or the spirits to the large swathes of people. They would go insane, even if you would. So it's a very personal sojourn. However, if you are a seer, gifted with that second sight, then you don't go on in a blind age talking about this. You try to rephrase it into philosophy, and you try to rephrase it into literature, poetry, performative art, in order to package it in a way accessible to the mortals, that something may trigger their minds in order to be inspired, even if a little bit. So that is so simple. And I think intellectual humility here is also important. The intellectual humility that most Judeo-Christian proselytizers lack. They are convinced, they have blind faith, have the gift of faith, but they believe in lies. I found many stubborn idiots believing in a lie and calling it the gift of faith, or the merciful gift of faith. Now, I didn't find many people who reasoned theologically in hidden ways and ascertained certain veritabilities and reached the gods and goddesses in pluralities. Because if there would be more of us like in this school of thought, in this hidden traditionalism, in this ancient traditionalism, then there would never be any collapse or regression into the populist Judeo-Christian mob. Because if our philosophers and great teachers would be capable of delivering elitism to the masses, and masses always opposed elitism, then this world would look completely differently. Now, the success of Judeo-Christianity was offering mob religion, populist religion to everyone else, while the elites held the shields of Athena, Glaukopes, and said, nay, you won't, nay, you won't, nay, you won't. And as goddess stands triumphant, she turns into stone all those cretins that try to approach her. And the elitism stays. That is those who know, those who reach the conversational skill with the gods and goddesses in their silence in their minds. Athena Glaukopis drops her shield to them, and she's once again visible as Isis unveiled. I hope that is self-explanatory to the intelligent, and I need not utter anything else. Thank you.